The Acolyte is just about to come out, and as it's a new Star Wars series, I thought, yet again, I would chuck out a bunch of last-minute predictions and see how many I can get right. And again, I put it on a bingo grid like I did for the Bad Batch. Reminder, when I did this for the Bad Batch, I ended up getting, I think, 3 out of 16. So doing it with 25 this time hopefully means I can get it up to more than 3. Obviously, there's a bit of a difference between how I could approach the Bad Batch and the Acolyte, because the Bad Batch, it was season 3 of a show. This is not only season 1 of a show, it's in an era that live-action shows haven't touched before. We've only had, books, comics, a TV show for toddlers, and some flashbacks in a game touching the High Republic. So I've got a bit less to build off of. So there'll be a mixture of me trying to guess plot points, a lot of me saying, this thing will show up. I only feel like I've chucked in like a couple of gimmies in there, a couple of like ones that I'm pretty sure, I would be shocked if they didn't happen. But I think it's going to be a bit fun, trying to see how many I can get this time. And, putting it on a bingo grid means that I can get 5 out of 25. And if they're in a line together, I can claim it as a win. Alright, we'll start off smack bang in the middle. What I've actually gone with a plot prediction for this one. We know that the plot is going to be driven by Jedi being killed. So I'm predicting at least 10 of them will. At least 10 that we see on screen happen. If they just mention it in passing that it's happened off screen, doesn't count. We have to either see it happen or see them dead. Then just above that, a prediction of something I think won't happen, which we've been told probably isn't going to happen, but you never know. They can always be lying about this. I don't think we see Yoda. Obviously, one of the characters that we've seen in Star Wars before that we know is old enough and was around in the Jedi during the High Republic. I don't think we see him. I think that they show some restraint and don't show us Yoda. They might name drop him. They'll probably name drop Yoda, but I don't think we see him. And then proceed to go against that and go with 3 other characters that we know are around the High Republic that I say are going to show up. I've chucked in Oppo Rancisis, and I've chucked in Yarael Poof, 2 other Jedi who we know were around during the High Republic at this time. So they probably won't both appear. I think one of them might get chucked in the background. Hopefully it's Yarael Poof. I don't know why him specifically, but go for it. And the third one I've chucked in, I mentioned the kids' TV show. Sod it, Nubs. Nubs is going to show up. This is like, I think I've looked this up, and this is supposed to be set about 100 years after Young Jedi Adventures. Sod it. Grown-up Nubs. He can be like 10 feet tall. We don't know how big he's going to get. Giant Jedi Nubs. Right, back to another plot prediction. Obviously, there's a lot of people getting up in arms about the fact of, the Jedi were supposed to think the Sith were extinct for thousands of years. And, they're supposedly you're going to be seeing a Sith in this, and it means, they have to, all the Jedi that see the Sith have to get killed off. No, I don't think that's the case. I think what happens is they'll be Jedi well aware that the Sith are back and around, and they just ignore it and think the problem's gone away again. It's going to be, this is all about how the Jedi kind of suck. I think that is the main point of this series, is going to be showing that the Jedi Order was just rubbish at their jobs. So I genuinely think they will know about it. I don't think Yoda will. I think they'll have to keep it from Yoda. But beyond Yoda, I think the Jedi can know and just kind of sweep it under the rug. I think that's what's going to happen here. One that's always having to put on these, prediction things is the whole, the Family Guy joke of, they said the title of the thing in the show. They're obviously going to say Acolyte in the show. I'm pretty sure it's been said in the trailers. They're going to say it. So I'm not going to claim it here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to claim someone is going to say the name of a different thing in Star Wars. I think someone says the phrase Phantom Menace at some point. It's going to be dumb and feel slightly weird and out of place, but it'll be brilliant. Someone is going to say Phantom Menace. Now I've got 25 spots to fill on here, so I'm going to start just chucking in 1 in each row and column of a different, alien that's going to show up. Or in one case, no, it's not a species, it's a creed, as they like to claim. So I think that we are going to see a Latero, which is, if you don't know, that's Grease from the Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order games. A Mandalorian. I think we will see it. They won't be able to help themselves, and they'll chuck a Mandalorian in there somewhere. I want to see a Gungan. We're seeing plenty of aliens by the looks of it in this. We're seeing not Nemoidians and that. I want to see a Gungan. Give me a Gungan. I think we also see a Basilisk is another one I'm guessing here, which, if you don't remember, that's Dexter Jetster is a Basilisk, or Ponkrell as well. The guys with 4 arms. And finally, I can't not say Mon Calamari. I think we see another... We've got to see some Mon Calamari, please. Please. Right, this is one that I don't know how I can really define this brilliantly. But I think we are going to get something weird being technically kind of force sensitive. In the sort of way where, like, kyber crystals are force sensitive rocks. I think we're going to get some, like, inanimate object or something that is considered force sensitive. I think it's going to have a, you know, this slightly different view of the force compared to, you know, what people like to traditionally think of. It's just a thing, you know, it's either people can move rocks with their minds or they can't. And that's what some, you know, the more traditional view of the force. I think in the, you know, way that Star Wars is going in a different view of it, I think there's going to be something weird that's force sensitive. I don't know exactly what it will be or how it will work, but yeah, we will get something that you wouldn't expect to be able to be connected to the force being connected to the force. I have no justification as to why I think that. I'm just guessing randomly on that one. Now, we don't know too much about the characters themselves, obviously with it being a new show, but we know a bit about a couple of the actors who've been cast. And two of them in particular, Leslie Headland, the showrunner, has basically said they wanted to see those actors, other characters, with a lightsaber. So I think at some point, probably somehow in like the fight choreography or something, we will get a reference to X-23 and a reference to Trinity from The Matrix. Some form of Matrix reference for Carrie-Anne Moss's character. Now, obviously, Star Wars can't really do too much referencing of pop culture because, you know, it's a, you know, in a galaxy far, far away. But I think, like I said, I think it's somewhere in the fight choreography specifically. I feel like we will potentially get references for those two. I don't think they'll be able to help themselves entirely. And speaking of Leslie Headland, one of the other things that she said is that she was a big fan of the Expanded Universe, or Legends as they now call it. From that, I think that we will get a Legends character, a character that was not actually been brought into canon yet, shown in the show. I think, I don't know who it will be at all, but I think they will find a way to bring a character back into canon. One who I don't think it will be actually showing up, but I think will get name dropped though, is Revan. I think we will get Revan called out. Again, zero justification for most of these predictions, let's be honest, but I just feel like this might be the point where we do get a Revan name drop. It won't be particularly consequential to the plot, but yeah, I do think we will hear the name Revan to fully make him part of... Revan does seem to be in a weird point of whether or not they're canon, where they were almost used a couple of times, I think, in the Clone Wars, but I think they've been referenced in like reference dictionaries and stuff like that, visual dictionaries. But I don't know that Revan has actually officially ever been brought back into canon or not. And I think that ambiguity ends in the Acolyte somehow. Well, I don't think Revan will show up. I do think we will see a familiar Sith in the flesh. And when I say familiar, just someone that is, you know, a previously named and existing character. The best guess I have right now, Darth Tenebrous, who is Darth Plagueis's master. I think the timeline works best for Tenebrous to what we know at the moment. We obviously don't know too much in canon about exactly which Sith were operating when. I think the main Sith characters won't be existing ones, but I do think we will see someone, a Sith that is a familiar Sith. Like I said, Tenebrous would be my best guess. And speaking of, you know, the main villains of the show, we've seen this cool person with a really cool looking mask, and I'm not touching them with a 10-foot pole in prediction. No, I'm not predicting anything whatsoever. I have learned my lesson. Guy with mask will be in the show is about all the prediction you will get from me. Now, I did think about putting a few different places on here, like familiar places that might show up. I've only gone with one, and it's a weird long shot. I don't know why my brain decided this was the one I wanted to chuck on here. Malachor. I think we get live action Malachor for the first time. Obviously, it's one that we were, you know, in canon introduced to in Rebels. It was then, I believe, using a Darth Maul comic as well. But I think we could potentially get some familiar places brought into live action or brought back in, you know, into something in live action that we haven't seen in a while. And for some reason, my brain is saying Malachor, you know, with all the potential Sith stuff going on. I do think there's potential for that to show up in live action for the first time, which would be really cool. Now for a couple of ones that I feel like have to happen. Like, I'd be shocked if they didn't. Number one, crossguard lightsaber. We know we're getting the light whip. We know we're getting some other weird lightsaber variant that I do not have the creativity to guess what I think that'll be. But from everything that I have seen in all the promotional material, we haven't seen a crossguard lightsaber, despite the fact we know they were prevalent in the High Republic. I think that even if it's not even someone using it, it's just a throwaway line of, seeing a crossguard one and going, oh, we don't use these anymore. I think we will see a crossguard lightsaber. I feel like that's a pretty safe bet. And the other safe bet is less of an in-story thing and more of an out-of-story thing. Sam Witwer will get a voice credit. Like, I haven't seen anything confirming this is the case, but he always does. Come on. Like, this is just me thinking, I'm just going to have to try and check all the credits now and everything, just to, like, check the additional voices. But Sam Witwer's in all Star Wars. Sam Witwer voice credit is going on there. Now, I've brought it up a couple of times, but the game Jedi Survivor specifically had some flashbacks to the High Republic and involved some High Republic characters. I think we see one of them. I think that's entirely plausible that we get a cameo from one of those characters from Jedi Survivor. I don't think they'd go outright for like Dagan Gera. I don't think we'd see Dagan Gera. I think that would be a step too far, but it would technically count within this prediction. It would give me the point on the board there. I think it's much more likely we see, say, Z, the droid. I mean, Santari Kree, I think, is a bit more of a long shot. Same with Ravis. I think Ravis is too tied to Dagan Gera. But I do think we see one. I think we get a character from Jedi Survivor just to make everyone happy, because everyone loved that game. It was a bloody good game. Now just to add another, like actual story prediction on there. I'm going to say at some point there is a character we are introduced to that we are introduced to not as a Jedi. We don't believe they're a Jedi at all. Gets revealed to be a Jedi, like an undercover Jedi. I think we get that at some point. I don't know who. It may well actually be a character that we don't know the character. Like, they've not been announced the character in advance or anything like that. But I think we will get a character that we think is just a normal person that turns out to be an undercover Jedi. Again, no justification as to why I think that's going to be part of the plot, but when there's some level of investigating, I guess, of crimes happening, someone being undercover entirely, I think fits the plot well enough. I think that could be something that happens. So I just wanted more plot predictions on here. I've got a lot of, X or Y shows up in the show. Speaking of, the next one that I'm going to put on here is I think we get Jon Favreau's face somewhere. Jon Favreau's played several different Star Wars characters, but it's always been like voicing them. He was Pre Vizsla in the Clone Wars, he was Rio Durant in Solo, he was Paz Vizsla in The Mandalorian, where he proceeded to give his own character the coolest death in all of Star Wars, because of course he did. But in all of those, it was never physically Jon Favreau. Like I said, it was all voice roles. Even Paz Vizsla, that wasn't him in the suit, it was just him doing the voice. But I think this is where, because they do like to have the different, Star Wars creators do like to put the other ones in each other's shows and whatnot. I think it's time Jon Favreau's face showed up somewhere. I don't know that it entirely makes sense for it to be in The Acolyte, but if he's not going to put his own face in his own stuff. And finally, we've got one more spot on the board here. And there's a couple of characters who show up in all of Star Wars. All, like, TV shows and everything show up in Star Wars. Obviously, this being set further back in the past makes it very difficult for C-3PO to show up, because he doesn't exist yet. We know he doesn't exist yet. It also doesn't make sense because R2-D2 shouldn't exist yet. But I'm somehow going to put R2-D2 appearing in The Acolyte. He's been in all of Star Wars. I don't think they will find a way to shoehorn him in here, but I can't trust them not to. Like, it will be weird having a Star Wars project without R2-D2 and C-3PO. I don't think we get them. Like I said, I don't think there's any way you can justify 3PO being there. Like, I'm pretty sure it's in canon that, like, R2 units shouldn't exist during the High Republic. But somehow they find a way. Or maybe there's somehow, like, a part of C-3PO that got, eventually salvaged and put into 3PO somehow shows up, and that's their way of shoehorning them in again. I'm now realising, right, this is what I should have actually written was Anthony Daniels shows up specifically so that he could still be in everything. Also, say they've been in everything. I don't believe they've been in Andor yet, but there's a second season, come on. They're showing up in season 2. But there we have it. That's my 25 predictions on a bingo board that I'll be keeping track of as we go through season 1 of The Acolyte. I have very low expectations for how my predictions will go. Pretty high expectations for what I think the show's going to be. I'm excited to have something that's set, far enough back before everything else that it's not so interconnected with the stories that we've already told that it limits what the story can do in itself. And for a show that's already tried to claim that it's not going to fill itself up with cameos and everything, I'm predicting a lot of cameos and stuff. To be honest, I'd be perfectly happy getting 1 out of 25 here, as long as that one is a Mon Calamari. Or a Gungan, to be fair.